Hey everybody, welcome to Cousin Jack Carves. So today we're going to be finishing up our carving on this little comfort bear and a piece of butternut. Many of you may also know that butternut is basically white walnut. If you're a fan of black walnut, like many people are, you know how hard that can be. The white walnut butternut is softer, easier to work for carving. And I just wanted to show you for a second this little piece of foam. This is high density urethane foam. After I drew the pattern, I guess you'd call it, the conceptual drawing for this project, I carved it into this foam just to sort of see how it would work out. It gives me some muscle memory with the carving, and this is easy to carve as well. So just wanted to show you that for a second. So we have a number of things going on for today that we will get wrapped up. For example, we will go ahead and get this tail finalized. And then the rest of the work will be right up here. Getting the face, getting these arms and paws put in there, just to show you where we're going on that. You can see we've got this paw on top of the nose here. And then from the top view, you can see there's probably about a 1/4 inch, probably 6 mils further back is where this other paw sits on top. And you can see how there's a space. The head is turned this way. This arm angles forward. The other thing I want you to see is that this leg is further back than that front leg. So let me show you from this angle. You can see the front leg here is forward, and we bring this one back a little bit. All right. So those are the things we'll work on today, and we'll get it wrapped up. Let's go ahead and start with this tail. Today I'm using the stubby version of the Harley knife. This has got an 1.5 inch blade, also made by Dell and Mary Stubbs up there in Minnesota. Pinewood Forge is where you would go on the internet to find them. So we'll trim up some of this end grain here around the tail. And as I mentioned last time, whenever you are into this end grain, the chips are going to come off pretty small. So be patient. You know, I was talking with Sunni earlier, and I mentioned this would have gone a lot faster with basswood because it's so much easier to, well, I shouldn't say so much easier, but it is easier to carve. But I did want to show you this butternut and give you an example of how that wood grain works on a carving like this and how it's really ideal for a furry animal. Okay, so I'm just going to angle my blade a little bit, come along this edge, like that. Come over here on this side, angle my blade, make a nice slice this way. And then I'm just going to come down on the base of that tail. Well, the grain does not want to go that way. It's going to come up at the base of the tail, like that. Come up here on the top, and again, sort of get a bevel cut. Another bevel right there. And then at the top of the tail, I want to get that smoothed out. I want to go ahead and remove all the saw marks and the pen marks as well. We'll be able to see better once we do that. Okay. So we've got the basic shape going on there. You can see it from this angle. There's that little tail. I just want to even it up a little bit. I want to bring this side in a little. And then we'll just taper this a little bit more at the base of the tail. Now, if I want to give it a little more definition than what we've got going on there, what I would do is just come in here with my blade and run a little stop cut all the way around the base of that tail. Not so much here at the top, but along the sides, like this. And then at the bottom as well, just put my blade in there and wiggle it a little bit. And just carve up to those stop cuts. Get a little bit more definition around the edges. Another thing we could do with this, of course, with a wood burner, we could come in here and just put a line right around the edges, give it a shadow. If you don't have a wood burner, this is a pretty effective way. Okay, work on this side over here. Just making a very small sort of a V cut, really. You could do this, I suppose, with a V tool if you wanted to. If you had a pretty small one with a small profile. Right now it's a little bit of monkey time going on here. We have the cats are playing, so if you hear a sound, that's the sound of happy cats. There. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think it's looking pretty good. I probably will just narrow down the base of the tail a little bit more. So it sort of tapers. Let's do a couple of other things. We still have some marks from the pen here on the leg, for example. Just going to come in here and take that off. And then here on this part of the leg, just going to bevel that so it's not a sharp corner, right? Just going to round that off, soften that up. And let's move up here and get these arms sorted out. So what you can see, I've got this drawn, this arm sort of angles forward this way. The head is sort of turned. That paw sits up here on top, and the other paw is more towards the front. And we're going to bring this arm, leg, back a little bit. So let's just do that first. Okay, that looks good. So now I want to take a chunk of wood right out of this triangular area back here on the end grain. I'm going to start by putting my blade right on this is a pen line that I had there, and then carving over to that stop cut. Now again, we're into the end grain here. So you can expect it's going to be a little more difficult to work with. I'm going to bring that head, angle it forward. Remember, it's turned this way, right? The head is. Now on this paw and leg that are in the front up here, just going to take off some of these marks and start shaping that leg. And it's going to be right about here where we will have that paw resting right near the nose and the forehead of this bear. Right here, I'm just going to take my knife and make a stop cut. And start separating out where the forehead is going to be. Now, this is not going to be a large gap here, but we do need to show some definition between where the arm, keep calling it an arm, where the the leg and the paw will be, as opposed to that forehead. And here we go. So we got a chunk out of there that's starting to shape up for us. And we'll just bring this forehead and slope it back some. Like this. So when you're doing this work on the end grain, you want to have your knives good and sharp. Make sure you strop them before you get started. They'll make a difference for you. Okay, we're getting some pretty good separation there. I'm happy with that. I want to bring this chunk of wood right here and make it start looking like a paw. So let me give you a better visual on that. I'm going to grab my pen and sort of draw what we'll see here. So this front paw will be right about here. And it will be coming back like this, okay? And we'll probably, like I say, have a little notch in it about right here. And there'll be some claws. And then we'll get to that other paw once we've cleaned up some of this area, remove some of this material. So let's come up here on top of that paw on the outside of our line. We want to make room for shaping. So cut some extra material. Just going to put in a stop cut. Just like that. And carve down to it. Just making a few slices here. Take your time, work your way through it. You're still actually working on the end grain right here because of the direction we're working with here. One of the things you'll find is that sometimes when you're slicing down through the grain from the end grain, it can chip out on you. So you really want to be careful. That's very often when people get hurt. Is when the wood will chip out or snap, and then folks will find themselves with a blade in their hand, and you do not want that. So take your time here and go slowly. So we have that top paw we want to start making some room for, right? We're going to start sort of shaping that as well. Coming in here to make a stop cut. just like that. And we'll continue to work around here. Kind of twisting my blade right here, turning it and twisting right up through that grain. Some material for the forehead. Again, I'm just twisting the blade right here. I think you can see we're starting to get some nice shape going on. So let's continue working on this front paw here. Just kind of round this off on the top. And bring the front down just a little bit. I'll make a stop cut right here. Take out some material between the front of the paw and the forehead, just a little triangular area right there. Yeah. Just going to clean that up. Okay. I just want to level off the top of that paw a little bit. Bring the back of it down. I'm really liking that shape there. That's looking pretty good. Still a little thick. I want to bring that down even more still. Give it an angle here. Yeah. Okay, so I think what we'll want to do now is just sort of separate it from the face a little bit more with the stop cut. So we'll come in here, we'll just make a little stop cut right around the front of the nose, like that. And then come at it from the other direction, that stop cut. Go ahead and get rid of our pen marks here. And then come over on that stop cut on the top of that nose. And I'll grab my denture brush. So if you haven't picked one of these up, you can go to your grocery store or your pharmacy for, I don't know, $3 or $4 maybe. Get yourself a denture brush. They have stiff bristles on them. This particular style, it has this flat surface and then it has a conical shape here. These are great for just going after fuzzies and cleaning out a cut. Okay. So that front paw is looking pretty good, so. I think what we'll do is put in a little bit of a notch right here where that paw would kind of be defined and separate from the front leg. I'm imagining it would be right about here. So we'll just come up in here with our tip of our knife, make a slice down this way, and then tip of the knife right around here, like that, and take that out. Perfect. Okay. We'll work on this other paw, and you can see we've got a lot of material still to kind of remove. So we'll start by bringing that down. Let's see which way we want to carve. We'll come at it this way. Maybe. Let's try this way. Nope. You know, experiment. Try different angles. See what the grain will provide for you. I'm going to need a line that separates the paw from the front of the bear's head, and I'm seeing that here's the front of the forehead here. And while I'm looking at that, let me just round off this angle here. We don't want them to have a sharp line on the front of the head. And this will also clean up some of the cuts we made earlier, because now I'm running the blade with the direction of the grain on that end grain. So this will help smooth over some of the marks that are showing. Okay, yeah. So if I'm imagining the front of the forehead making contact with the front paw here, I just want to carry that back across this way. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my blade, sort of line up the point of the blade right here, and then lay it across, just like this. And then I'm going to wiggle that blade, get it down into that end grain like this, give myself a mark. There it is. Okay? Nice and easy. Now, we'll go ahead and get ourselves some separation there to continue shaping that other paw. And you will find that this end grain is not very forgiving, but you can do it. You know, have some confidence that you're going to be able to get through it, and it'll work out for you. I think the most important thing, especially for me, is enjoying the ride. And you've probably, if you've seen some of my other videos, you've probably heard me say that before. And what I mean by that is enjoy the process, right? Enjoy this creative process and enjoy the carving of the piece. Well, that didn't take too long, did it? So we got the separation. Now, I just want to twist my blade up like this. Again, running my blade along the line that the grain wants to run there. Now I'm going to come back in here, make another stop cut. And just get that separation I'm looking for. So we're getting there. What I want to do now is take this back leg and paw, sort of get an angle this way. Coming in here and there, the front of the paw, just, again, twisting the front, the tip of this stubby blade that I'm using today. Starting to shape that paw. So I've got a nice round angle here. And then at the front, you can see I've got this sharp corner. That's not going to work for us, so we got to round that off. All right? So let's do that. Yeah, that's better. That's what we're looking for. So what I want to do next is start shaping the front of this paw. So I envision this coming up a little bit and then starting to angle back. So I'll come up about halfway on the front side of this and then start slicing back off the top of it like that. So remember that notch we put in that front paw? Definitely want to put one in this back paw too. I'll show you an example of that. You can see it right here. See that notch? Separating sort of that look of the paw from the leg. Okay? So let's work on that too. So the first thing I want to do is bring this leg back even further, just a little bit more before we build that notch. And then I also want to bring this down some. Now be careful where you put your thumb. Don't put your thumb on that little ear because it will snap right off. Separating these two front legs a little bit here. So you always want to, check your shape. Keep looking at it until you're happy with that shape. It's so important to rough out your carving before you just try and jump into the details. I think we're there. I think we're ready to go ahead and put that little notch in. So we have a shape like this one. So let's make that. It's sort of this triangular cut. It's also a curved shape, so it's not just a regular triangle. So I'm going to put the point of my knife here. I'm going to draw it back, kind of curving that cut as I go. All right, so I'm going to get that tip in there and then bring it down like that. And then I'm going to come more on a straight angle down this way. Get that tip in there and bring it this way. And we'll work on removing that. It may take a little bit. Almost there. We have a little bit of cleaning up to do right here. Well, I think that looks pretty good. Got a nice shape going on there, right? Now I've got this point right here on the top of the bear's head. I'm just going to smooth some of these areas out and clean up some of these lines that we made when we were carving here. Now what I want to do is put in a little separation between these two paws. And to do that, I'm going to use a stop cut. And, it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be just a really small little line. And I will come back over it later with a wood burner. But again, if you don't have a wood burner, I want you to see, how you could put in some separation there. So just going to come with the tip of the knife at the bottom of that paw, angled down a little bit, bring it around the edge, just like that. Turn it around this way and come at it from the other direction. And you might say, well, why is it that you go from the other direction? What's that about? Well, like most people, when you're holding your blade, you have a sort of a natural angle built into the way that you carve. It's almost like when you write, when you're writing, and maybe if you learned how to write cursive, you found that there's a certain angle to your letters when you're writing. It's like that. So when you're carving from one direction, you've got your blade angled. When you come back from the other direction, it's angled again. It's going to give you a nice little groove, a little V cut, and that's what we're looking for. Just a tiny little line of separation. I'll put the tip of the blade in here. Take that out. It's really small. Just a sliver of wood, really. But what that does, helps to create that shadow that we're looking for. Okay, so I think we're good with those two paws. We have one other paw we want to address, and that's this one right here. What we're going to do is shape this paw. We want to bring that front of the paw, sort of rounding it a little right here. So I'm just going to come onto the top of it from an angle like this and just go in like that. It's basically a triangle cut. Just creating a shape here on the front of the paw. And then we want to have some separation from that front leg. Again, just going to make a stop cut there. So we got the front of that paw shaped in a way now where we can have some claws that will be near the front. And we have a little cleanup to do right here. Yeah. So then on the top of this paw, I'm just going to round off that angle. All right, just bevel that. Here we go. Well, let's round off this angle as well on that leg. And then I think, you know what, we're ready to go ahead and get this face put in and that eye. We are there. So one of the things we'll want to do first is sort of round off this nose, this muzzle, and build in the separation from the front of that face. And that part will be a stop cut like this. This doesn't really have to be much. It's just a sort of a subtle separation. Now we want to round off the top of that nose. And of course the bottom as well. that front. So what we'll want to do is sort of draw in the shape of the nose. I know we're calling this entire muzzle a nose here for a second, but the nose really sits right at the end of the muzzle. It's kind of a triangular shape. So yeah, let's do that. Grab my pen. So what we will want to do is make ourselves kind of a curved line coming from the front of that face, that muzzle. This is going to be the nose. Just kind of curving it up here like that. Now, you've already heard me say several times, you could do some of these things with a wood burner, and you could. You could use a V-tool. If you had, like I said, a micro V-tool, you could make some of these shapes as well. I'm just showing you the knife version. All right, so I'm just going to come in here and make a stop cut. Just going to be separating that shape that we drew there. This is not very deep at all, okay? It's just the tip of the knife. And remove the pen marks from there. Right here at the top of the nose, we have to get that out. There we go. So we'll just shape that a little bit. And yeah, you might consider switching to a detail knife when you get to some of these small details. There's nothing wrong with that. Go right ahead. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in that mouth as well. And for that, you guessed it, another stop cut. Just going to make a curved cut. So we have a little bit of a smile. And we'll try and get these pen marks out of here too. Oh yeah, beautiful. All right. Let's make that eye. So the eye is very subtle. It's just a little curved line. I got something going on right here that I want to smooth out before we even start. All right, let's go ahead and start the eye. We'll just put the tip of the blade in and make a little bit of a slice and a curve like that. And again, tip of the blade. So now, the only thing else I wanted to really show you before we start the wood burning and the finishing is this sort of a mane on the bear, and on the example bear that I first talked about, the Hugler carving that I saw. It had quite a mane on it, and it had these marks that were clearly made by a gouge, right? And on some of these others that I've carved, you know, I didn't really put in as much emphasis on that. You can see here, there's more or less a sort of a V sort of groove that I made. So you have options when it comes to the mane on the bear and how much you want to emphasize that fur, okay? You make your choice. What I'll show you today involves knife only, so we'll go with this sort of look right here. And certainly you could, if you wanted to, you could come in with your knife, put in some various hairlines in there if you wanted to. Just for today, going with the simple, sort of stylized look. So I'm going to curl my blade here. And be careful about putting your thumb on that ear like I just did. Not a good choice. So I'm going to start near the front here. Make a stop cut along that curved area. Sort of create a little groove. Again, you know, it doesn't have to be a lot. Like I said, it's a sort of a stylized bear with some details, but not a lot. So now I can come back and sort of reinforce the stop cut down here. At the bottom of what that mane would be. And give that a little more separation. I think we are ready to begin the wood burning part of this demonstration for you. We'll grab the wood burner and heat it up and show you where I like to go in and put in some lines just for a little further detail. And then we'll put on some walnut oil and we'll call it done. So I'll grab that wood burner and I'll be right back. So we have the wood burner here. This is a walnut hollow wire tip burner that I use, and got it online. I'll put a link to it in the description below the video. And you can see this pointed, sort of chiseled tip that I'm using. It's really good for making fine lines. I'm going to start by putting in a couple of the claws here on this back foot. So we'll come in here and start with one claw, sort of curving back like this, and we'll put in another. That's good. And then I'm just going to put in a little line helping to separate that foot. On these two paws up here, of course, we're going to have some claws coming in there too. First thing I want to do is sort of put a line in, separating the muzzle from that paw, and then the forehead. So if you're ever working with a wood burner and you make a mark and you're not happy with that mark, don't worry about it. Use your universal eraser, also known as your knife, and just remove the burnt part. Let's go ahead and shade in this nose. For that, I'm going to use the flat side of this wood burning pan and this tip. Okay, so while we're here, we'll put in this mouth. And the eye. So some claws here for this paw. And of course the paw that's back here too. And I should say, I want to put a line underneath that paw to separate it. Now you can stop there, of course, You could go further if you wanted to. You could put in a line around the face. You could put some dark areas in the ear if you wanted to. You can also come back here on the tail, and we can put in a line going around the bottom parts of this tail just to give it a little more shadow, and along the sides. Again, not at the top, because the top sort of is fully attached to that bear. So I will come in here and just give a little shadow underneath the muzzle and along the front. All right, let's go ahead and put some walnut oil on here. So here we go, a little bit of walnut oil, and got that here in my container. Just gonna paint that on here with a brush. It really does help to bring out the grain really nicely. I think it probably helps that walnut oil is associated with butternut, which is white walnut. You don't have to be very accurate with your painting on of the oil. You could also, of course, wipe this on with a rag if you wanted to. I find that a brush helps me get down into all the little crevices that are there on this bear, or whatever piece that I'm oiling. I usually will use walnut oil before I paint on basswood as well. It helps to raise the grain, helps sort of precondition the wood a little bit. And I don't want to forget the back side here, so we'll put some on there. So this product that I'm using is, it's not like your regular store-bought walnut oil. And I'll show it to you here in just a second. Now, what I would normally do with this is put on a single coat. You could put on more if you wanted to. After it's dried, you want to make sure you let it soak in. There's no need to really wipe off the excess. Just let it soak and dry. Like I said, sometimes I will use it before painting on basswood. Like I said, it helps to raise the grain and sort of precondition the wood. Let me show you the product that I'm using. As I mentioned, this is not like the store-bought brand. This is called Mahoney's Finishes. And this, I know it's hard to read. It says Utility Finish, Heat-Treated Filtered Walnut Oil. So, unlike what you would buy in the grocery store, this is filtered and it is heat-treated. It is food safe. A lot of wood turners use this. It's very popular for them because when they're turning a salad bowl or something like that, they'll put some of this walnut oil on there. It's food safe and all natural. So the stuff you buy in the supermarket is going to be distilled walnut oil. And this, like I said, is not. It's filtered and heat treated, but not distilled. Okay, so that's Mahoney's Finishes. You can find it online and give it a shot. Well, folks, I think we have reached the end of the process here with this bear. I want to thank everyone for coming along, and we'll see you next time.